Hello and welcome to the Divorced Dadvocate, divorce support for dads, where we help dads create a healthy and less traumatic divorce. My name is Jude Sandoval and I'm your host. Today we have a great conversation that is our sister podcast, Dads Dating After Divorce, with Ralph from Dads Starting Over, and our guest, Anna Rova, who is a femininity and feminine embodiment coach. And we have a great conversation around the masculine and feminine polarities. But before I tune you into that, just a reminder that the divorce quiz is still up at the website at thedivorcedadvocate.com. You can click on the divorce quiz tab, and it is a great opportunity to kind of gauge where you're at in your divorce compared to others who have gone through it. Check that out. It takes about 5 or 10 minutes, and then we have an opportunity for us to sit down and chat about your results. So check that out. You can do it at the website or directly at thedivorcequiz.com. And then also the divorce app is out, and you can find that also at the website under the tab Get the App. And that's got a lot of great resources in there. And we're going to be pretty soon here kind of running everything through that app. So get it now. All the courses are open to check out for free for the time being. And again, you can get that at the website or at thedivorceapp.com. All right, and now is the latest episode of Dads Dating After Divorce. I hope you enjoy and take care.
Be the hero of your own movie. If your life was a movie and it started now, forget about whatever financial disasters you've had, personal failures, relationship failures. What would the hero of your life's movie do right now?
Hello and welcome to Dads Dating After Divorce. My name is Jude Sandoval. I am your co-host and the founder of the Divorce Advocate community. And my colleague and co-host here is
Ralph, and I go by the pen name DSO. My website is dadstartingover.com, and I also founded a men's group called the DSO Fraternity.
All right. Well, Ralph, I am pleased today to have found our guest, and she is a femininity and feminine embodiment coach with more than 200 podcasts, which exceeds our number of podcasts, I think combined, interviews under her belt. And the conversations she's had with real women worldwide, hundreds of hours of coaching, plus her own personal experience have shown her what relationship success really means for women in today's world, which I'm excited to get into what relationship success really means for women. She has used this approach in her own relationship and can tell you firsthand that you can attract a committed masculine man without cheat sheets and dating tricks, but simply by being yourself and embracing your undeniable feminine essence. Let's welcome Anna Rova. Anna, thanks for being here.
Thanks so much for having me, guys. I'm super excited.
So Ralph and I, as we've explained a little bit pre-show, have our respective communities that we do our work with. And like I mentioned, we're very, very interested in talking with you today about the feminine and masculine polarity, which you talk about extensively on your podcast, which I've had the pleasure of listening to, in your blog, and what it sounds like in your personal work with women that are looking for a meaningful relationship. But before we get into that, share a little bit with the audience about how you got into this work, and maybe the second follow-up part to that is how you discovered this masculine and feminine polarity, and why that then was an aha moment, if you will, for you in starting to do the work you did and starting to teach women about it.
Yeah, great question, Jude. I I mean, this was years ago for me, and really polarities, it wasn't a huge aha moment for me. It's when I discovered it by stumbling upon, like so many people do, David Data's work and his monumental book, The Way of the Superior Man, that I used to send to all of my clients, to women clients, right? My clients are women. And it is now, I'm proud to say, an aha moment for so many women that I'm working with. And so how I got into this work is via a breakup, which I now call a breakup. I was almost engaged to what I now call a feminine man. It doesn't mean it's good or bad. It's just a man who was more connected to his feminine rather than his masculine. I didn't understand it at the time. And this was maybe about 7-8 years ago when we had a breakup and I had to date again. But prior to that, I was maybe in 2 long-term relationships and I didn't know what dating was. I didn't know anything about men. And here I was. I mean, granted, I was quite young, probably about 23 or something, although, I have a really mature soul. And so, I had to date again. I had no idea how to date. And I started kind of researching, talking to the girlfriend. I mean, you know how it is. I started to kind of date and
no, we actually don't know how women date, so or how women process that. That's why you're here.
All right. Okay, we'll talk about that. Well, I started just, like, how does this dating work? And then, I downloaded Tinder and stuff, and I started kind of researching as well. And, men are from Mars, women are from Venus. I always had this inquisitive nature about me. I always knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur and do something on my own. I started listening to a lot of podcasts. And, I read a blog, I remember, that talked about that. It was basically a story about how, a man and a woman go out on this date and, she feels like something is off, and it's a whole description about in her journal. It was the day after. In her journal, there were 3 pages about this whole experience and how the date didn't go well, and he was so distant, and she was trying to talk about it, and yada, yada, yada. And then there's a whole, by the end of this date, she was like in tears. You don't love me. There's probably another woman, and so on and so forth. And then in his journal, there was just one line that said, "My motorcycle broke." And so when I read that, so I tell this story to my women and to men because it illustrates, which I now know, polarity and how men approach relationships, what's important to them in life. And then I stumble upon this thing, Polarity, Feminine Masculine Polarity by David Data. And from then on, this deeply resonated with me because this was my own experience, in dating and in my dynamics with men. Like, for example, I was almost engaged to this feminine man, how I call him, but I was always attracted to these masculine guys, who were living on the edge and who were in their masculine presence, who were ambitious and successful, knew what they wanted, who could take me by the hand and lead me somewhere I can't lead myself. But I thought, for me, the world of men, and which I know for my clients, for a lot of women, the world of men is divided into 2 categories. It's either this feminine, nice guy, who is very loving, who's going to be the best father to your children, and who's going to do everything for you. But long term, you're not going to respect him. You're going to walk all over him because he will allow you to. You're going to boss him around and so on and so forth, and then not going to be attracted to him in the long term, which is what a lot of my clients come from. Or the second part, of my world of men was basically, I don't know if I can swear on this podcast, but
please do.
Where the assholes guys, who are very much in their masculine, but who are the players, who are emotionally unavailable, who would betray you, cheat on you, and so on and so forth. And so when I was doing all of this work about men and rediscovering men and myself, I realized that my world was basically divided into 2, and there was nothing in between. And so I oscillated between the 2. And I was also that woman who's saying, where are all the good men? Like most of the women are saying today. And so when I stumbled upon polarity and I started, I connected to that idea. I knew this was true in my experience, but I also was wondering, is it true for others? And so I started interviewing men. I had another podcast before this, which I called Men Inside Show, where I was interviewing men about women and relationships and dating and stuff like that. And then I started working with women and my clients. And the last piece I'm going to add to that is that this whole polarity, I knew this was true for me. I knew this was true for my clients. I knew this was true. But what I saw in the world of polarity, feminine, masculine polarity, I don't know if you guys are experiencing this, is a lot of like woohoo stuff. It's a lot of energetics and chakras and, you know, like spirituality. And this wasn't good enough for me. I was like, okay, I need to understand, where is this coming from? You know, this is universally true for most women and men, how we relate in relationships. And so that led me down the rabbit hole of evolutionary psychology, which explains a lot of this polarity and why it exists. And so with that knowledge, then this polarity stuff has been solidified, not only in my experience, but also in my body and in my, so I, you know, I dare to say my body of work now that has been created. And I have an amazing program that helps women shift and transform, get out of their head into their body. And now they're attracting these amazing men like I have. You know, I'm married now to a committed masculine man, as I call him. We've been together, well, we've been married for 5 years. We now have 2 children. And so, yeah, that's kind of the nutshell into how I discovered this work and this polarity thing.
Well, Anna, I have to say it's a little creepy because you just told the female version of my story word for word.
I'm sure we're not the only one.
Oh my
we're not
goodness,
the only
yes.
ones who have the same journey. Yeah.
You talked about, you know, the women having to deal with the dynamic of the asshole and the sweet guy. And a lot of people have identified the same thing, and I have as well. And I heard the same thing over and over again. I call it in my vernacular the lover versus the provider. And men tend to, when you say your ex was very feminine and he had those feminine traits, he threw all of his eggs into the provider basket probably, and he totally neglected the lover side, the more masculine side, if you will. And we're hearing that a lot from a lot of men in my group. And something, usually what I call a holy shit moment, kind of wakes them up to say, oh, this can't go on much longer like this. And usually for men, it's divorce, discovering infidelity, all kinds of little things that just kind of wake them up, and they have this kind of masculine rebirth, if you will. And they're rediscovering this whole polarity thing. And it sends them down a rabbit hole. Men are very big. I don't know if women are necessarily, but men are very big. We talked about this, Jude, on the last podcast. Very big on knowledge consumption, reading tons of books on the subject, listening to tons of podcasts, all specifically around the topic of becoming a better man. And that leads them to my stuff and my book and so forth, and your stuff. And it's kind of interesting that we're seeing this resurgence in this interest in this. And you pointed out, and the same for me, it sends you down a rabbit hole of the non-romantic scientific side of things, of the whole evolutionary psychology and the ones and zeros of what, you know, the programming in men and women. That's personally where I really get interested. I really love that type of stuff. I find it very interesting. I kind of think sometimes I miss my calling in the psychology world. I find myself reading more and more of that. So it's very, very interesting to hear your story and to hear where you come from, how similar the stories are. And I think, Jude, you can probably nod your head and say, yeah, been there, done that as well.
Well, what I love, Anna, is that you're speaking our language with the evolutionary psychology thing, because what gets lost in the modern day conversation is that all this stuff about feelings, and this is rooted in the way that we are created, in the way that we conduct ourselves. And we had Dr. Sean T. Smith on last week, and we were talking a little bit about David Deda's work, and that is his stuff is spot on regarding the polarity, the masculine and feminine, and how that dynamic works together. Where it gets a little woo-woo is in practical terms, and then those practical terms is the science and the evolutionary psychology around it, and how we actually conduct ourselves in the real world. This stuff is great. Some of it just doesn't make sense to me in like how we practically deal with this when we're going through divorce, when we're starting to date again with kids. We're out on a date with somebody, and we've gotten through the breakup, we've got kids, we're trying to figure all of this out. You know, we can't do his breathing exercises down the front, up the back, you know, clench our sphincters and like be thinking about all this shit during a date. We like, there's some of this stuff we just really need to figure out basically who we are. Like, my motorcycle broke, and how do I convey that to her right now in a conversation? Like, yeah, I'm being authentic and a real guy. Like, my motorcycle just broke, and I'm kind of upset right now, right? And we don't have to get into the whole David Data, the masculine, feminine stuff, but still be masculine. Like, we're still showing up, we're still, we're still being there. We're still being present, authentic, but we're also being able to share our feelings and balance some of that stuff. So speak to that a little bit, and keeping in mind that it's dads dating after divorce, and what they can do to start the process of cultivating, like Ralph said, that masculine part of them, so that they can then be attractive to a true feminine woman, which is what we're looking for. And there's scales, right? There's different scales. Men are going to have different amounts of masculinity and femininity in their own natures as women are, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great question. Well, first I got to say that, the men who are listening to this podcast are already doing the work by being listeners of this conversation, and I'm definitely not the expert I don't work with men. And so this is obviously your guys' domain, right? But
sure.
The fact that they, they realize, I think it's so attractive when a man just literally is exposed to this concept and, is unapologetically stepping into his masculine, where he's like, there's a lot of men who are in their feminine domain, right? We should all be hiding behind these slogans. We should all be feminists, and therefore I'm going to be a doormat and let the women rule, and then there's guys who are in between who kind of like, oh, I don't know, what is this? That's not attractive. And so by being here and listening to this, I think they're already doing the work. And I just want to tell all the men listening that, the same questions that you guys are probably asking yourself about, what about the kids, and I'm divorced and all of that, exactly the same thing women are asking themselves after divorce. And I've got a lot of clients in my program who, obviously are divorced, had 1 or 2 marriages, who have kids. Some of them don't have children. And there's so much weight behind that. There's so much, how am I going to do it with kids? And what is he going to think? And the child care and this, how do I bring? So all of these things are on both sides. We're all dealing with the same issues on both sides. And I can tell you that, some of my clients, I've got women who've got 4 kids, right? And from different dads, and they found the right man, and they're now in a relationship, and so on and so forth. So all of that is possible. All of this is all in our heads, like all of these obstacles that we create for ourselves. Oh, I got a wife or whatever, 2, or I got all these children. Doesn't matter, it like literally from doing this work for multiple years, women come up with all kinds of excuses. Oh, I live in this area, dating is terrible in New York. Oh, I live in the middle of nowhere, dating is terrible here. Oh, I've got 3 children. I've got no children. I want kids. I don't want kids. All of this literally doesn't matter. Like, if you stand in your own true power as a man or as a woman, what you want, who you are, and you're attracting the right, like, if you're a man and you stand strong in that provider, protector type of energy in your masculine, and you go for it, right? Like, this is what's attractive to us women. We want to be taken care of. We want to be pursued. We want to be by the right man, obviously. We want to feel safe. Like, the biggest question that I ask women, how do you want to feel in a relationship? I'm a feminine embodiment coach. I'm not a coach who tells them, here's the texting guide. Here are the 10 templates to send, guys, because that doesn't work. Like, right. Okay, what are you going to say when you're on a date? Have you like memorized pre-written like, it doesn't work. And so, when I work with women, I help them get out of, so back to the question, when I ask women the question, how do you want to feel in a relationship? Because this is my domain. I help women feel again, coming back to their bodies and themselves. They say, I want to feel safe in a relationship. I want to feel taken care of, nurtured, cherished, adored. That's it. They want to feel, we want to feel that. So if as a man, it doesn't matter divorce or no divorce, that all is semantics. That's what comes after, right? Like, first, who walks into the door is you as a man, and how strong you stand in your masculine energy, how much you know yourself. And when you sit down with me at a table and, we start the conversation, I can feel your energy. And if I feel safe with you, I can totally melt and relax into my body. I can get out of my head and not think about the groceries. What do you think of blah, blah, blah. Of course, I got to do my own work, right? But if I'm in the presence of a man who can hold the space, and lead me into something that I can't lead myself, then you can see it in a woman's body. I mean, as you guys, I think you notice that when a woman just exhales, and it's really fascinating how today, especially, we as women, we go to work and we succeed. And, I work with very successful women who are single. Most of them are single. Some of them are in relationships. And there's so much tension in their bodies. They're constantly in their head. There's so much tension. They're like trying to figure things out, especially if they've got kids. That's an added layer of pressure. And so when she goes on a date, and she can be with a man who can just be here and now, and she can relax with and surrender. Oh my God, it's like the best feeling in the world. My biggest success stories are for women who are like, I didn't even know this existed. I've never met men who can pay for the date, take care of me, plan and organize. I don't need to worry about anything. He just says, you just show up and be yourself. That is the best. If you can give a woman that, and then obviously consistently pursue her, and then she's yours. Like, to me, it's so simple. Obviously there is a lot of layers to that, but that's why I love this work, because when women stand true in their power of feminine energy, in their femininity, and see the power in that, see the power in surrender, see the power in letting go of control, and then men meet them in that same place, but with a opposite polarity of the masculine, it's just incredible. This is where life is. This is where attraction is. This is where love is, and I'm just so passionate about it. And the last thing I'm going to say, when couples stay in that after they're in a relationship, this is the secret to a long-term success as a couple. Me and my husband, we just celebrated 5 years of marriage. And as a feminine embodiment coach who teaches polarity, I'm very aware of this polarity stuff. So I'm constantly working on that. And we just talked, we recorded a video about success of our marriage. And one of the biggest successes is, the fact that we are in polarity. I'm still attracted to him today as I was 5 years ago. Not everything's perfect, but I'm still attracted to him. I'm still laughing at his stupid jokes, and he loves it. And so that's the secret to our marriage, pretty much. Yeah.
Would you say the majority of your clientele are wanting to get married again? They're in the dating process, or do you have women that are currently in long-term relationships or marriages?
Most of them are wanting to attract a partner, fall in love, get into a relationship, and get married. Yeah.
I would think, looking at it from a scientific point of view, I often say that women and men both at the early stages of a relationship play like the mating game dance, and the natural attractive stuff comes out more naturally. Women tend to be more feminine and soft during the initial courtship phase, and men tend to be harder, more masculine. And we drive the nicer car and we look fit and, hold the door for the lady and everything. And then as we get more comfortable with each other, the knobs get turned in the opposite direction. And the women, their neuroticisms elevate, and with the men, they're just whatever. They just, go through the motion. They go to work and they come home, and there's the romance is gone. In other words, do you find that your suggestions are easier for women that are in the early dating phase to adopt than it is for a woman who's been, let's say, married for 20 years and she notices the spark is gone and she wants to reignite things? One's more difficult than the other?
Well, I do have clients who are in relationships. As I said, most of them are single and looking to be in a relationship, but some of my clients are in a relationship or even in marriages. And I've seen examples where that has turned around. Most of it is because the women come to me because their relationship or marriage is depolarized. As you kind of described, in the beginning, everything's great because we naturally know how to date. It's instinctual. The woman is kind of like choosing her mate and the man is peacocking around. Choose me, choose me. I've got the most amount of resources to take care of you. And then it kind of dwindles because, we live together and children and blah, 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 and it's sad when that happens. But when I work with women in relationships, I would say, how shall I say this? It is harder because you've got another person to deal with. If you're single, you work on yourself. There's one man coming, another one going, you're dating, right? I always teach my women, by the way, this is a good subject to ask you guys, but maybe this is a second conversation. I always teach my women to date. What does it mean to date today? It means to date different men at the same time. And a lot of women have this like, what do you mean date different men at the same time? And I'm like, and there's some men on my Instagram who are like stalking me and telling me that I teach the wrong stuff to the women. No, a masculine man would like you to date only him and stuff. And I'm like, you don't understand evolutionary psychology. You need to go and read some books on that or do your own work around that. But that's why, I teach them that. I teach them that because, that maximizes their chances to not be stuck on one guy and think she's in a relationship and so on and so forth. And it's just choice and abundance, right? There's plenty of men in this world who will be lucky to be with me as a woman. Obviously, you come from a space of humility and stuff like that. But when you are in a relationship, you are with this one man, right? And when you're doing your own work, there's this one man that is a constant mirror to your stuff every day. You do your thing, and then he comes up and he triggers this, he triggers you, and so on and so forth. And so it's harder to turn that polarity around, but it's not impossible, and I've seen examples where the man doesn't even have to do anything. I mean, in the sense that, the worst advice that I can give a woman is like, go and tell your man to do this work, right? It's like, no, I work with you as a woman. And as a woman, if you step back and focus on yourself and start working on this feminine stuff within your own body, start to discover, I always say women who start working with me who are in relationships, 2 scenarios. One, as you start to work on yourself, things will turn around. The more you step back, the more your man is going to step forward and take that masculine space that's been always there for him. But perhaps maybe you have not allowed him to step into the masculine space, and then things turn around. Or another scenario is that you're going to realize that the men that you're with, and, obviously I say this in these terms because I'm not the decision maker here, and I never want marriages to end up in divorce or whatever. But the second scenario is very possible that you can realize that this man does not have that capacity for you. Yeah. And I've coached women through that as well. Some women enter this program because they don't know what to do in their marriages and relationships. And as time goes on, they start doing the work. The man is there, blah, blah, and they just decide that this is not for me. I know what I want. I know who I am. And this particular partner is not meeting me there. And so, they decide both to move separate ways so that she can be with a man who she wants to be with. But it is harder. Yes.
It's a mismatch. You bring up something really interesting about how women are needing to go to the workplace. They're working, they come home, they're having to take care of kids. And that is interesting because in the dynamic that we've created in our society, women and part of perhaps where we're at in with feminism these days is women are being encouraged to embrace their masculine and act in a masculine nature, and doing that when they wake up in the morning, going to work, spending all day at the office, maybe climbing the corporate ladder, and then coming home and then wanting to go on a date, or if you're in a relationship, poses a big challenge to make that shift from what has been an all day long 8 to 10 hours of I'm in my masculine all day long, and now I need to be feminine, especially if you have no clue of the differences in the polarity. And the other thing that you mentioned and that I'd like to speak to then is you talk about a man holding the container, which it's kind of esoteric, right? What does that mean? The man holding the container, creating that space, holding container for a woman to be in her feminine. And how can we do that when, okay, so I went to work all day, I'm in my masculine, I'm doing my thing, I come home, I'm still in my masculine, because for the most part, our society's structured that way for us to be doing our thing, achieving, just going along with what is naturally masculine, and then come home. But our woman is showing up then in her masculine. How are we holding container for her? Or how do we shift that, let's say, whether it's on a date or when she comes home, to be able, you mentioned safety as one of them, but some other ideas around being able to do that. You said you work with women to be in their feminine. How can we continue to hold that masculine so that they can eventually relax into that, even if they don't know that they're doing it?
That is such a good question. And you're right. I feel like this is why I started doing this work, because I saw that the more successful women become, the less happy they are in relationships with men.
Absolutely.
And this is precisely that, because, you know, today, I mean, yeah, women still complain, but I'm like, we live in the world where there has never been so much opportunity and possibility for women today, right? This is the best time to be as a woman, to succeed, to go out there in the world and make whatever you want happen, right? And so you're right. What happens is that then when we want to date, and especially if we're not aware, we don't understand, where are all the good men? You know, why are they ghosting me, and why he's not planning that? Well, because you're planning everything, you know. And he's like, okay, I guess you're planning everything. And so, you know, it's really hard for a woman these days to shift. And that's what happens when I start working with women. They realize this polarity and they're like, oh my God, yes, I want to be in that feminine, but how the hell do I do that? Like, how do I switch from, you know, controlling everything and telling people what to do and being in my head all the time? Well, you know, I can tell you from a woman's perspective, how do we switch is through what I found to be super effective is through that technique of feminine embodiment, through that modality of feminine embodiment. I teach women a fundamental practice that I do still to this day, every day. That's why my polarity is, you know, standing and alive in the relationship, because with this feminine embodiment practice, which I call feminine flow, we teach women to allow themselves to feel and to release whatever's happening in their body, to just be here. You know, a lot of women are afraid of losing control, are afraid to feel. We've been numbed out from the head down, right? Like from the neck down. It's scary to be in the body. A lot of women are afraid of, you know, if I uncover all of these layers that are here, fear of abandonment, limiting beliefs that I'm not good enough, that I can't trust men. You know, a lot of women have been betrayed by men and hurt by men. As you know, this is, you know, women carry that, we carry that through generations and generations, like stuff that men never have to deal with, you know, not feeling safe, right, around masculine energy. So that stuff is in our cells and in our bodies. And so the work that needs to be done is, you know, getting out of your head and into the body. And so through this feminine flow practice that I teach, which is weaved through all of my coaching modalities, this allows women to get out of their head and into their body. A lot of women do this feminine flow after work, before a date. This is one of those successful hacks that women do, that allows you to get into this space where, you know, I always tell them, when you date, you're supposed to enjoy it. Like, come on the table, you know, sit on the table on a date, not with a preconceived notion of where is this going? Is this my next husband? What's the checklist? Where are the red flags? But breathe out and be in your body and be curious about, who is this man? Do I want to see him again? Just allow yourself to be here now. That's what's really hard for women today. So through the practice that I teach, they do that.
And maybe Ralph can help, because he's been successful in finding a woman, remarrying. And for men, Ralph, in creating that environment, then when you do show up, for a woman to be able to do that, because I don't know if it was your experience, but my experience is like, from the time we start the courtship, if you will, whether that's you meet them in person and talking, it's this dance of like trying to take control of the situation, right? Like, okay, I'm going to be in control, so you're either going to follow or we're just not going to work out. And so creating that environment, but not that brash or being a dick about it, but just that I am in control, and you can relax, whether that's I'm being forward about, this is like, I want to go out with you, I'm looking you in the eyes, and or I'm making the call and saying, hey, I'm interested in going out with you. And that's uncomfortable for women sometimes, but I find that the women that are in their feminine like that, right? They want you to do that, finding plans, making the plans, where you're going, when you're going to go, what you're going to do, and then showing up, and then having a plan, and then cultivating that opportunity for them to just be, if you will. Thoughts? And Ralph, I'm curious to hear your thoughts, because you've been successful. You know, I'm talking out of my butt half of this, because I'm 9.5 years after this, and I'm not remarried again, which is my ultimate goal. But you are, so I'm really curious.
I think this is something that a lot of men struggle with, and I think one thing that works against us is that when in a long-term relationship, many women function as the logistical managers within that relationship. They're the ones that make sure the kids go to where they're supposed to go. It's, we need a new couch. The man could care less. Order whatever couch you want. I don't care. And that could be construed as he's letting go of control. He's just allowing the wife to take over and be the boss, while us men look at it as these are things I could care less about. I have more important things to worry about than what red hue of carpet to get or what kind of couch to get or so forth. So we just surrender ourselves. But as we can see, those of us who've been around the block a few times, you do that one too many times, and you do that to a certain degree of severity, it can go past the tipping point pretty quick into the wife just has the say in everything in relation to the relationship. So there's a tipping point there. Now, Anna, you don't know, but as far as if you want to talk about, I don't know if alpha female is the right term or not, but a very professional woman, I married a surgeon. My wife is a medical doctor. She's a pediatric surgeon. So all day long, she's literally bossing people around and saving lives, and then comes home to me. Now, so do I stand there and go, now, listen, woman, now that you've walked in the door, you can just leave all that doctor stuff behind? But no, I think early on in the relationship, we've cultivated this dynamic between the two of us where I am the person she can lean on for emotional comfort, for stability, for you're my man. But at the same time, I'm man enough to realize that when it comes to some of the logistical stuff of the house, yeah, she's on top of it. Good for her. And but I'm not also one to say I'm a man. I don't do those type of things. I'll wash a dish. I'll change a diaper. I'll do all that kind of stuff. I'm not above that type of thing. So there's that delicate balancing act. And women today have their work cut out for them. This is kind of a right turn in the conversation, but it's falls along the same lines. Control, masculine, feminine. I think in Jude, you and I were talking about this before we got started today, that we feel sorry for a lot of women. So, for example, a woman, let's say, who used to be married for 15 years to one guy, and the guy cheats on her and leaves her with 3 kids. And all she wants is a good man, a man who checks the boxes of the lover provider. He has these both sides of the equation. He's a good balance. He's not an asshole, but he's not an overly sweet guy. He's not a super nice guy, pushover dude. That's what every woman in the world wants. So she goes out there and says, what do you have, dating world? And the dating world just says, for a lot of women, from what I'm hearing, a lot of women are saying, I found him, or a couple of guys like that, but I'll be damned if they just don't want to commit. And the reason is why? Well, the guy has 12 other girls that he's talking to. And I don't know if you're aware, Anna, that is every man's dream, to have to be doted upon by 12 different women who all say you're the most amazing thing ever. And we talked about that initial honeymoon phase of the relationship. Experience that with 12 different women at once. Hello. And then you have one woman saying, or you could commit to me. Good luck. That's tough.
Especially if all those 12 women are attractive, then
bingo,
jackpot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. They don't necessarily have to be over the top, 10 out of 10 level of attractiveness. Just doting on your man and making him feel like king goes a long way. And in that early relationship energy, that's what we get from these women. And if the guy has the looks, the charm, and everything else, and he's one of those, top of the pyramid dudes, as we call it, he's going to have his pick of the litter. And here's some poor woman saying, I'm a genuinely good person. I work really hard. Life just took a shit on me. I'm out there trying to find Mr. Right, and I can't find him. What I've seen with a lot of these women is they, quote, settle. And it's sad. And what they typically settle for is super duper over the top, nice provider guy who just they end up having no respect for 2 or 3 years down the line. And, they're drinking 2 bottles of wine a night to deal with it. I don't know, some thoughts on that. And it kind of goes along with what we're talking about with the control and so forth.
Well, Jude mentioned something about dating. And so, Jude, when you were saying, like, you meet a woman and you're like, I'm in control here. I want to pursue and I want to, let me do my thing. The unfortunate thing is that a lot of women won't allow, right? Like just won't allow for that to happen. And that's on the woman, right? And so as a guy, you're just sitting there and being like, what do I do here, right? Do I back off or do I push harder or do I let her go, right? And so it's a really hard choice to make, but ultimately I'll tell you the story from the woman, from my clients, like what you're experiencing now. We were experiencing the same thing on the other side, where a woman is like, this guy asks me all the questions. Where do you want to go? And I'm coming to town. Could you research and book and what do I say? And we're all standing strong in our feminine. We're like, I like sushi. I like, I don't know, Mexican. I'll let you plan the rest. That's it. We always say, give the ball back, leave the ball back into his court. And if he's not picking up that ball, and if he's not picking up that check, so to say, right? Or if he's not planning organizing, he's not in his masculine, you got to let him go, you know? So that's why we date. And so from the men's side, I would recommend, right? Like if a woman is like, no way she's allowing you to court and pursue, like, is that worth the battle? Do you want to be with that woman long term? Probably not, because there's plenty of women who would love for you to court and pursue and so on and so forth. And what's also important here is that that's also setting the dynamic right from the beginning, right? And that's why I teach women, right? You want to be with that man who holds that protector provider type of a role. It all starts from the beginning. If he chooses and initiates and pursues, and that continues, and your job is to just stay in your feminine. There's that moment of tension where I call it the dating funnel for women. It's what you DSO, you know, you're what's your name, DSO? Because I'm like, you remind me of these mystery guys, you know, the pickup guys. They have these nicknames. Yeah. So you're the DSO. You're not the mystery, but you're the DSO.
You can call me Ralph. Ralph is my real name.
Ralph, yeah. That's right. Sorry, yeah. I forgot. Yeah, I just heard DSO, and I'm like, okay, that's your name. So what am I saying? I lost my train of thought.
With the control.
Yeah, we were talking about the control, right? So I teach women to have a dating funnel, to date. So when you were saying, you know, that guy has 12 women to date, right? And especially if he's at the top of the pyramid, right? So what I teach women is not to be that woman who's like sitting there with her 3 children, like, pick me, please, please. I'm going to cook you nice dinners and I'm going to give you the best blowjob and like, please pick me, right? Like that's that's how you settle. So my women who I work with, we embody that notion that as a woman, I am the prize. I am the prize. I know who I am and I choose, because literally, if you look into evolutionary psychology and the mating dance, the woman chooses, not the guy. The guy can peacock and dance around and whatever, but then at the end of the day, she chooses who to let her penetrate, right? And then impregnate her and so on and so forth. And so we embody that notion that I'm the prize and I choose and I date from a place of power, that what a gift I can bring to a man to be in my feminine energy and to be, and I tell these women all the time, and I think you guys will agree with me that a woman like that is rare. A woman who is at the top of her game with whatever she's doing, even if she's just a stay-at-home mom, that's her choice, top of the game, right? Top of the game in the corporate world, whatever. And a woman who can surrender and relax, right? And who can let you lead. I wrote an article that's like viral right now, let him lead. And so when she's able to do that, knowing that she's the prize, knowing that she's not going to settle for some guy who just offers her comfort and, okay, sure, you can move in with me with your 3. No, you know, like I'm a powerful woman. I can do whatever the hell I want. And I can surrender. And so that's a really powerful place to be as a woman. You know, all these women think that, oh, I got to fight for my place of power and lean in and stuff. And I'm like, no, how you do power, you embody power, whether it's in the boardroom, in the bedroom, or in your relationship with a man. But you got to know how to play these dynamics and be in your feminine and allow men to lead, because most men are men in their masculine energy, whether they know it or not. Maybe they haven't woken up to that yet, and that's their choice. But if you do that from starting from dating and going into relationship, that's going to secure that you're going to be there with a guy who really stands strong and holds that space, holds that container. And I think, Jude, you asked me this question, like, how can you hold the container? Well, I would say, you know, from a guy's perspective, like how my man holds the container, he just cracks jokes all the time. You know, like I am stressed and I'm in my head. I'm like, oh my God, I don't know this client. And he's constantly dancing with me, getting me out of my head with his stupidity and jokes and silly things. And I don't know, listening to like just, you know, talking guy stuff all the time. He also like a lot of physical contact, right? Like David Data talks about this in his book. Take her physically, throw her on like he runs after me. I'm like, no, you know, like a toddler. I'm not going to talk to you. You're doing this wrong and this wrong and this wrong. And he like, you know, he takes a pose like a tiger or whatever. He just starts running after me and then like squeal like a little girl. And so like, it turns into this like instinctual, the best thing you can do for a woman is get her out of her head. How do you do that? You make her laugh, you physically throw her on the couch, start taking her clothes off. She's like, no. You know, you turn this into a game and she's here and present and now. That's what we want.
Right.
So
And so what you're describing to me though is this paradox of femininity, right? That we're living in right now. Your power for a woman is in your femininity. Our power as men is in our masculinity, and so whatever degrees those are, that's when it's like the opposite sides of a magnet really attract when you find that person.
I call that feminine. I call that the unique flavor. I tell every single woman, you have a unique feminine flavor that's going to be attracted to that unique masculine flavor. All of the guys listening and stuff, every man has a unique masculine flavor that's going to be attractive. I mean, I look at you two guys. You guys are very different. You bring up very different energy. Ralph has like guitars and stuff. It's kind of rock star thing. Jude, you have a beautiful flower, and then like bricks and leather couch. So all of these elements are just ways of showing up in the world in your masculine flavor. And the more of that masculine flavor you bring, same thing for us, like what I teach women in terms of style and creativity and your hair and your makeup and the red lips, like look at my nails, right? That's my feminine flavor. And my guy is going to be attracted to that. It's a really beautiful, nuanced dance like that.
Well, and maybe that's a good place for us to finish, and you can give us a comment on this for the dads that are listening. And you made the great point. Find what your masculine nature is. And that's different for different men. And I always use the examples of, there's maybe the Dwayne Johnson in The Rock, who's, this massive dude that's really masculine and funny. And then there's guys like Prince, or the artist formerly known as Prince, right? You can't deny that he was women were attracted to him, but completely in a different way. So speak to the men learning what they need to learn, the divorcing dads that are getting back in the dating game and finding what that masculine nature is that they have, that they can then cultivate and offer to a woman.
I think that's all about men's work. I think it's what you guys are doing. It's following you. What I do with women, helping them get back into their femininity is not something special or like a prescriptive recipe. Like you got to burn 10 candles a day and wear like long dresses and stuff. All of that, YouTube is full of all of that. But what I do with women is I help them rediscover themselves as women, and when a woman rediscovers herself as a woman, she realizes that, oh my God, I always loved to paint, or, oh my God, I always loved style, but I thought that women who are stylish are these like superficial women who have long nails and Botox, right? So yeah, it's all that journey of rediscovering yourself as women for us, but it's the same journey as rediscovering yourself as a man, which thousands, biology has done everything for us. We don't need to reinvent the freaking wheel. It's all within our bodies. And so I feel like when men do the same work of like, what do I like, who I am, what do I value, going into these rites of passages. I was telling String, when he looks at men's work, like these sales pages from this guy, Bodrum, whatever this guy name is, what attracts men is like, suffering is the way. I got to suffer and fall and suffer and suffer. Book a call with a Navy SEAL, book a call with a Navy SEAL. This is what men want. And this repels me to my core because I'm not a masculine being. And so, it's so beautiful that we don't need to invent anything. We don't need to go. We just need to follow what attracts us. And what attracts a lot of men is living on the edge, going to that gym, suffering, booking a call with a Navy SEAL, going with men on this retreat where you like, oh my God, I'm going to die this next second, So it's doing that. And the more you do that, the more attractive, the more you're going to be yourself as a man and feel good about you. And the more you're going to be attractive to the opposite sex. And so if we all it's very simple. If we all just do that from the woman's side and from the men's side, then the world of relationships, it's going to be so easy. Dating is easy and then relationships are easy, but we just got to keep doing that work. So that's the rest of it.
Ralph?
Amen. I love it. That's perfect. Well done. Thank you so much. This was great.
Thank you.
Yeah, we could probably talk for another 3 hours, Anna, but I know that you've got to go, and maybe we'll plan on time to revisit some of this and talk some more. But we really appreciate you being here today. For the men listening that would like to, and I always find this important to kind of read, like reading your blog, listen to some of your podcasts is really enlightening to help me to learn and understand how to develop my masculine. And that's where I have tried to do that. Where can the men that want to do that connect with you?
Yeah, well, I'm all claimed.com. That's the name of my program. That's the name of the website. But, I have a YouTube channel. I'm Anna Rova. So if you just Google Anna Rova, you'll find my podcast, Claimed, my YouTube channel, and my blog. It's all there. And I'll be happy to come back. I love talking about this stuff, especially when I talk to men about this. And so, thanks for having me, guys. And thanks for doing the work, because all of my women are like, what are the men doing there? I'm like, don't worry about that. Like, there's plenty of men's work and men who are doing great work. So thank you for doing what you're doing, because we need that. Like, all men need that. Thank you.
Absolutely. Our pleasure. And if you found some value in this, anybody that's listening, please share it far and wide. Stop and give us a star rating, leave a comment as well. It helps us to get this out to more people, help more men and women and relationships in general. Ralph, Anna, thanks so much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Be the hero of your own movie. If your life was a movie and it started now,